Hey, what's up everybody? Retro Gaming Guy here. Today in this video, we're going to check out this plug-and-play Batocera game drive that I found on Amazon. Now, this advertises over 48,000 retro video games plug-and-play ready to go on here. So we're going to unbox this and then we're going to plug it into my gaming PC and see what it actually has on it and what the performance is like on it. So let's check it out and see what we've got. All right, guys, here we have our 2.5-inch hard drive external case. So we'll go ahead and open this up. So we do have a little manual here, and it walks through how we can actually change our boot order in order to actually boot directly into this. So go ahead and move that over. Here's the drive itself. So I do like the cassette sort of look to this. Definitely plays into the whole retro vibe. But this is going to connect over via this USB connection. So we're going to use this cable to connect it to our PC. Very simple process here. We just simply make this first initial connection right here, and then we can go ahead and plug this into any USB port on our PC, and then we're going to have to change our BIOS in order to adjust our boot order. So basically we'll go into BIOS. Usually it's going to be either F10 on your keyboard, or you can just tap escape multiple times, and that will bring up your BIOS. You'll go over to boot, and you can select this rather than your internal HDD or SSD, which typically on like a PC would have Windows. So you would switch over to this, and this will boot right up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll see what this has to offer us. All right, guys, here we are jumping into this 500 gigabyte Batocera 35 plug-and-play game drive. And again, this is using Batocera, so right off the bat, I see we're using the Artflix Cobalto theme, which is one of my personal favorites. Love the images for each of the collections here. Now, before we start touring through this, I want to say I've just plugged in my gamepad controller, and because it's Batocera, I'm very familiar with the process here. Once we plug in a controller, we're going to have to map it. Otherwise, it's not going to register and be able to, get us through our system here, or certainly be able to play games. So you're going to need a keyboard, and what you're going to do on your keyboard is you're going to hit your space bar. That's going to open up your main menu. We're going to go down to controller and Bluetooth settings. We'll go ahead and hit enter on our keyboard. Now make sure your controller is plugged in. If you have a Bluetooth gamepad controller, then you can go right over here to pair a Bluetooth device. I've just plugged in a wired one today. So I'm going to go right into controller mapping. And if you have a Bluetooth, you'll go in here and you'll hit pair Bluetooth device. You'll go through the pairing process. And then from there, what you'll do is you'll come back out to this screen and you'll go into what we're going to go into right now, controller mapping. So I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to hit OK. And now on my gamepad controller, I'll hit any button that I want to, and it's going to advance me into the configuring page. So I'm just going to map my controls on my controller to the controls listed here on this page. Now, one little bit of advice, I'm using an Xbox style controller. So you'll notice that A, B, X, and Y line up differently than what is shown in that diagram. So what I like to do is I like to just go off of the diagram there. So what I'm going to do is for A, I'm going to hit on my controller B. For B on screen, I'm going to hit A. For X on screen, I'm going to hit Y. And for Y on screen, I'm going to hit X. And this is all on my Xbox style controller. You can do this however you want. There's no right or wrong way to do it, really. So just, go through it and line up your controls with what you want to use them as. So right analog up, right analog left, L2, so left trigger, R2 right trigger, L3, R3, and my hotkey. Hotkey I always put as like my select button, or if you have one of those controllers that has a lot of extra buttons, just assign it to one of those. And you'll use your hotkey for exiting games. So we're all set here. I can just back out. And now I'm able to go through all my collections. So let's kick everything off with All Games. All Games is going to be your master list for your entire setup. And if we go to the bottom right corner, you're going to see down there it says 48,103 games. That means that this 500 gigabyte plug-and-play game drive has 48,103 total games on this setup. So that's going to be from all your different collections. So let's jump into All Games and let's see what the layout looks like in here. So looks like we don't have any video previews, which I'm not surprised because 500 gigabytes with that many titles, they're probably trying to use every bit of space they have available, and videos do take up quite a bit of space. So we have box art. Now, I've said this before in past review videos on plug-and-play setups. I hate when you use the same image 3 times over, like right here. Our right list, we have the cover art or box art. The left side inside the little screen there, we have the same image, and then bottom left corner, we have the same image again. You can change it up. You can put in a logo. You could put in a box art. You could put in maybe a screenshot from the title if you're following this format here. So just gives you a little bit more originality, in my opinion. I think just having the same image 3 times over is obviously very repetitive. Now, another thing I want to mention here is, because we're in alphabetical order for this, and I don't know if I did mention that, but we are in alphabetical order, or at least we should be. Yeah, it seems like we are. You're going to find duplicates in here on your all games list, because if there's duplicates, they're going to populate in multiple times in a row. So we'll be able to determine if there are a lot of duplicates. I'm seeing, 2 of the same right here. We saw 2 of the same before. We're seeing quite a few of the 007 World Is Not Enough here for Game Boy Color. So 2 for that one. So I'm anticipating that we're going to find some duplicates in here, and that's a really high number. Game Boy Color, and I suspect I know why, because I have reviewed so many of these, but we'll back out of this collection, and we're going to go collection by collection. So right here we have a favorites collection. You can actually add your favorite games into this just for easy access. Over here we have CPC 464, and how many titles inside of this collection do we have? It looks like we have, where's our game count on here? Let's back out, and it should populate in on the bottom. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we have 2,917 games. I'm looking at the bottom right corner there. So let's just see how it's laid out. Very similar to what we saw before. And I'm just looking for, obviously we're seeing the same image over and over again, so I don't want to beat a dead horse with mentioning that, but just know that I'm not a big fan of that personally. You can go in here, rescrape it to have, again, different images for each of these. So a logo, a screenshot, and box art. Just makes it look cooler, in my opinion. But I'm not seeing a ton of duplicates here. And sometimes when we find duplicates in our master list, it'll be for different collections. But for Game Boy Color, that shouldn't be the case. And that's where we saw quite a few duplicates. But this is looking pretty good here. We're going to back out. And at the end of this video, I will do, a few gameplay demos just to make sure everything works. Now we have right here GX4000 for Amstrad. And we have 25 titles here. Love that Michael Keaton Batman background. Looks very cool. And we have the game that would go along with it right here. So always good to have that. Nothing worse than having an image in your background for a collection and not having the game that goes along with it in your setup. So that's not the case, at least. So it looks pretty good here. We'll move on. We have Apple II. 473 games, which for Apple II is not that many. You can get a ton of games for Apple II. But this does look like a good, solid collection. I'm not a big Apple II guy myself. Came out quite a bit before my time, but still cool to have in here. And it takes up almost no space at all. So certainly not something that you would trade off for something else. So over here we have Apple II GS. We'll jump in here. Take a quick little look around. It's consistent, looks very much like it would on the other collections. And in that collection, we had 148 games. So MAME, big fan of this, 2,116 games. Let's jump in here. I like the Mortal Kombat background on the theme. We'll go through here. And I'm looking for duplicates in here because MAME is one where you will oftentimes find a lot of duplicates. So it's looking pretty clean so far. I'm not seeing duplicates, nothing obvious anyways. Good selection of games. Afterburner. We had NHL Open Ice Challenge there, which I'm a big fan of. Alien 3 The Gun. Awesome light gun game, or rail shooter type of game. Suppose it's not true light gun, but still falls into the, for emulation purposes, light gun category. Lots of good stuff in here though. All your classic arcade games for the most part will be found in here. Cool. All right, let's back out. And again, that was 2,116. We're going to go to the right to Atari 2600. Inside Atari 2600, we have 594 games. If we click on that, we can see what the layout looks like within. So very much in line with what we've seen so far. And we'll back out of Atari 2600. Next one over is Atari 800, 2,670 games. This is pretty massive. Next collection over is Atari 5200 with 95 games. And I do like how the screen over here that has the different images does differ from collection to collection, even with these being so similar. So next one over is Atari ST. This one has 854 games. And again, a different screen in here, different background as well. even if we do have the exact same layout, more or less, for each of our titles. Next one over is Atari 7800, 65 games in here. And we'll back out of that one. And now we have Atari Lynx, 82 games. And I love the handheld background on this one as well. And I like how everything populates in quite nicely. Now we have Atari Jaguar, 67 games over here. And we'll back out. So here we have Tsufami Turbo, 1953. So this is basically your Super Nintendo collection. You're going to have all those classic games in here and a massive collection. So I'm interested to see if there's any duplicates here. And again, it's looking good thus far. So you're going to get a lot of foreign releases in this. And sometimes we'll even see like a US version, a Japanese version for some titles, and everything here seems to be just one version, which I personally prefer. I don't need, you know, two different region releases for one title. All right, we'll back out. WonderSwan, we have 114 games. We have WonderSwan Color over here. And WonderSwan Color has 91 games. ColecoVision has 146 games. And there will be some crossover between a lot of these retro collections, but it is slightly different versions of the games, so certainly not mad at it for that. Continuing on, we have Commodore 64. Whoa, 6,550 games for Commodore 64. That's pretty insane. Lots of stuff here. And I'm not really a big Commodore 64 guy myself. I can, you know, certainly appreciate it, but it's just not something that I personally dive into for emulation very often. All right, next one is Commodore Amiga 600, 2621. So 2,621. I like the background image there. Got some Monkey Island going on. And you will have crossover here with some of the other Atari collections. We have CD-TV, 35 games. Not as familiar with all of this. But we'll go through here. We'll take a peek. Looking good. All right. So after CD-TV, we have Amiga CD32, 144 games, and a pretty sweet selection. Not a collection that I'm personally in a whole lot, but definitely some good stuff here. We're not seeing, you know, obvious duplicates, and these are some of my favorites in all honesty. James Pond, 2, 3, and do we have the original? The original would be for a different collection if I'm not mistaken, but awesome games here. Over here we have Intellivision, 149 games. We'll take a look through here. All your classics, and you will have some crossover between this and some of the other collections as well, as mentioned before. Vectrex, 46 Vectrex games. Let's see what we've got. Good layout. All right. And now over here, it looks like just one title, Descent, shareware. MSX, 540 MSX games. That's pretty stacked. And we have MSX2, 518 games. And what's this? MSX2 again? This is probably MSX2 Plus. One of these is going to be the Plus, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is the 2 Plus. Cool. And that one just has 9 games. But yeah, interesting that the main logo there doesn't have the little plus sign. Makes it a little bit confusing, you know, to tell the difference. But here we have games for Windows. And it looks like we just have Plants vs. Zombies here. That is a cool game, though. Next one over is PC Engine or TurboGrafx 16. Nice layout. And we got a duplicate right there. Let's see if we find any other duplicates that are obvious right in our face. Not seeing anything else thus far. So we may have some duplicates thrown in the mix there, but nothing too outrageous. 298 games. PCFX. All right, 50 games in PCFX. This is a collection that I am not familiar with at all. Over here we have Game & Watch, 59 games. Love the way that this populates in. In all honesty, I think I've played this like 2 times just to test it out. It's cool to have on here. I think that the coolest thing is just the way that it populates in right here. But for those that grew up playing these games, I think that would be pretty cool to be able to kind of emulate them. But certainly you can have more demanding stuff on this setup. So here we are getting into the real popular stuff. NES, 1,879 games. So massive collection, and you can't go wrong with Mario there. So let's see what we've got. Nice layout within. Very straightforward, easy to navigate. All right, backing out. We have Family Computer Disk System next. We have Family Computer Disk System next with 209 games. Backing out. We have Original Game Boy, 1,175 games. Good stuff in there. Super Nintendo, 2,232 games. So we will have a lot of crossover with this and some of those other collections that we've been into. But does look good. All right. So we've got Super Game Boy here. 1,046 games. And I'm going to jump ahead here because I already know what we're going to run into. Game Boy Color and Super Game Boy. Basically the same thing. And in fact, it's the identical collection. So I've seen this on almost all of the plug-and-play game drives. And unfortunately, it's a way to kind of pad the games quite a bit and to pad your overall number, because right off the bat, we have an extra 1,046 games because this collection is essentially this collection. Here's the proof. We start with 007, The World Is Not Enough. We go to 10-Pin Bowling, and then we go to 102 Dalmatians. I mean, I can do this with my eyes closed because I've seen it time and time again. So we'll go over here and we'll go through the motions of this one more time. 007, The World Is Not Enough, followed by 10-Pin Bowling, followed by 102 Dalmatians. So literally, title by title, the exact same collection, and they populate in the exact same way. In fact, the only difference is going to be the background art there. Notice the background differs, but the game layout and collection is absolutely identical. So unfortunately, that's an entire collection of duplicates, but we'll continue on. Nintendo Virtual Boy should have about 30 titles here. 33 games. All right, sweet. That's on point. Nice layout. I like the goggles there. Everything looks very good. Backing out. Nintendo 64. So 457 games, massive selection of N64 titles, and they populate in very nicely. And let's just jump in here because this is a collection that I'm a big fan of. I want to see, do we have our, Mario 64? Do we have our cruising games? Because I'm a huge cruising fan. We do. Awesome. And I'll probably check those out just to see if they work because those can be actually tough to get running. Hydro Thunder is another favorite. And let's go down here to the Mario titles. Make sure we got all of our classic Mario titles for N64. We have Party 1 through 3. Awesome. We have, okay, we've even got that. That's awesome. Mario Kart 64, Mario Golf. So all the good stuff here. Awesome. All right, we're going to back out of that. We're going to go over, we can skip Game Boy Color. We already kind of tackled that one. What else do we have? We have Nintendo GameCube, 15 games. So not a massive selection for GameCube. Let's see what we have, though, for GameCube, because this is another collection I'm a big fan of. So we have some Batman in here. We've got Blood Rain in here, Catwoman in here, Crazy Taxi, Evolution Snowboarding, FIFA 07, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. We got a couple Harry Potters in here, some Hot Wheels. So we've got some cool games. Need for Speed Most Wanted is an awesome one. I love that. Some Zelda in here. So honestly, I mean, there's some good stuff in here. GameCube's tough because if you're going to limit the collection down to 15, you're obviously going to get you know, the favorites of whoever put this together. Unfortunately for me, other than Need for Speed Most Wanted, we just scroll through here. Crazy Taxi is cool, but do we need it in GameCube? We can get it in Dreamcast, and I'm sure it's in Dreamcast here. There's only, I mean, Zelda's cool. There's only one game I'm really stoked about in this collection. Like, I would love to see Mario Kart Double Dash in here. You could put in, I don't know, you could put in Super Mario Sunshine in here. We could put in Donkey Kong in here. There's just a lot of, you know, games that GameCube was known for that they left off. You know, leave Zelda in here for sure. Leave this guy in here. Yeah, I mean, Catwoman, that can go. I don't know, just little things I'm noticing that I would drop. I would drop, you know, NBA Live 2005. I know that these are really popular. I was never into them, but yeah, there's some stuff here that we could do without, I think, to make that better. But you know, there's going to be people out there that think very differently and think that that is an absolutely amazing selection. So it's all personal taste here. So over here for Game Boy Advance, 1812. So 1,812 games for Game Boy Advance. Seems like a pretty high number, in fact. Okay, we've got some of the 2-packs in here, which I'm not a fan of just because we likely have the individual titles. So when we add the 2-packs into the mix, it's just another way of adding more to our numbers here, which makes sense why our number is so high. Like this one, I would guarantee that we have both of these individual titles. Do we need them bundled together here? Absolutely not. You know, and there's a lot of these doubled up here, but hey, they're included in here. They don't take up much space, so I guess it really doesn't matter in the end. But you're seeing all of these are double features or triple feature games. So let's scroll way ahead and just see the layout here. There are some minor inconsistencies, like check out the right-hand side. We have box art, then screenshot, 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 box art, screenshot, screenshot. So just slightly different layouts here. But you know, it is what it is, and that seems to be the case with like the foreign releases. We'll back out. Okay, so we have Nintendo DS, 3,833 games. So if you're a DS fan, this setup is going to be a home run for you. There's some amazing stuff here. I didn't even know that there was a Zorro game for Nintendo DS. Not a big DS guy myself, but know that there is a huge following for this, especially with emulation. So it does look like a good selection of games here. And we do seem to have some duplicates here. And I think it's going to be on different releases. Now, let's see. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of games here. And I think that they've done multiple region releases. So you're going to find some duplicates in this collection for sure. We'll back out of this, though. We have 3DS. And we have inside here, how many games? 55 games for 3DS. A lot of games I would probably never play, but again, everybody has different taste in titles. So this might be a home run for some. For me, it's nothing that I'm too excited about, but let's check out what we have over here. So 38 games over here. Corpse Killer, Crime Patrol, awesome games. What else do we have in here? Mad Dog games are always fun. Some Space Ace. Good deal. Next one says Doom right here. And, well, it populates in as a picture of Doom, but it's Mr. Boom, it looks like. So interesting how that is. We have Open Bore over here, 281 games for Open Bore. That's awesome. I'm a huge fan of Open Bore. Absolutely hate the way that this is unfortunately laid out, just because it's hard to read everything. You can see we just have an image of an arcade cabinet with, you know, a close-up. I mean, it's, I don't know, I guess it's not terrible, but a little bit hard to read. That one looks interesting. I'm not familiar with that title, so check that out. Let's see. But these are basically like your custom-made, like side-to-side beat-em-up style games. But there's definitely some cool stuff to be found in here. Contra is a good one. What else is in here? There's a Bruce Lee one that's pretty cool. There's a bunch of Double Dragons. There we go. We got a bunch of Double Dragons there. This one right here, one of my favorites. This is Double Dragon Reloaded Alternate. You can do Double Dragon as like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Andre the Giant. Lots of classic wrestlers. And I think there's more. I think there might be Ted DiBiase in there. There's some really cool ones. So that's cool to see. A lot of Final Fight stuff. Cool. A lot of Golden Axe. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Pretty cool one. Nice. Oh, the Kill Bill one I like a lot. All right, cool. All right, so this one says Prince of Persia. This is a port, I believe. So the ports they have populating in like Super Mario War. A lot of these are going to be ports. Let's see. Pie games like a trivia game. Thomas Wave, 25 games. I do like a Thomas Wave. Laid out nicely as well. Pretty cool stuff in here. All right, we'll back out. We have Sega SG 1099 games. Sega Master System. How many Master System games? 442 games. Cool. Looks good. We have Sega Mega Drive here. 1,341 games. And you're going to get a lot of the same titles here as Super Nintendo. That's just the way that it is. But I'm not seeing a lot of duplicates within the collection. Here's a duplicate, but that's going to be different region releases. So this is the US version. This one's obviously going to be a Japanese release. But, you know, we will have... Oh, okay, there's another one here. Oh, all right, gotcha. One is... Let's see. All right, yeah, there's an extra one there. Okay, so still on point with the fact that we will have some duplicates thrown into the mix here and there, but it's not as many as I've seen on other drives. Next one is Sega Game Gear, 406 games here. Love the way that everything populates into the screen on the handheld. Next is Sega Mega CD. And that is going to have 50 games. We have Sega Saturn in here with 61 games. And I'm interested to see how Sega Saturn is and what we have included here. Definitely some cool titles. When I first got into Batocera, Sega Saturn was one of the games, or game collections rather, that I was most excited about because I was coming in from RetroPie, and RetroPie, oftentimes used with Raspberry Pis, you could not get a decent experience with Saturn. So a decent selection here. There's some titles that I wish were on here that aren't, but not bad. And again, that was 61 games over there. Sega 32X, you're going to have 37 of these. Go the opposite way. So we've got some WWF classic stuff like WrestleMania, the arcade game. We've got WWF Raw in here as well. Definitely some cool stuff. All right, Sega Naomi, 54 games here. I'm a big Sega Naomi fan. We should have, what is that, House of the Dead? No, House of the Dead should be in here though. House of the Dead 2 rather. I don't know if it is. There we go. It's under T for the. Forgot about that. The House of the Dead 2, awesome to have. All right, so keep it moving. Sharp 68,000, 147 games. We have ZX81 here, and that's 70 games. ZX Spectrum, 6,161 games, massive there. And you're going to get some crossover with a lot of these titles from other collections as well, but looks pretty good. Neo Geo, so 151 games for Neo Geo. We can find our Metal Slug titles in here, lots of good stuff. Neo Geo CD, 93 games. A lot of King of Fighters in here. And now take a look at this. This is what I was talking about before when I prefer to have logos. We have logos on the right-hand side. We do have a duplicate of the images on the left. We have it in the screen and then in the bottom left corner, but see how it's much easier to read everything on the right column here. So even though right now I'm highlighting Viewpoint, I know that Windjammers is next. I know that World Heroes is after that. I know the last two games as well. So it's just easier to navigate up and down the list when you know what's coming and what you already passed. It's just like if I, went too far, I know that I can go up to World Heroes Perfect, 3 titles up. Just, small things like that I think make a big difference in the end. So definitely like it there better than, the other collections we've seen where it's just that same screenshot or box art 3 times over. Neo Geo Pocket, 82 games. So see this, like I don't know what 3 games up is over there on that right column, or what 2 games down is until I get down to them. Then I can actually read it, but I have to go over to the left-hand side to read it. So little things like that. Backing out, we have Neo Geo Pocket Color, 89 games. We've got original PlayStation, 466 games. This is a massive collection of PlayStation games, and we've got foreign releases too. Lots of good stuff in here. Sweet. All right, let's keep it moving. PS2. PS2, just 3 games in here. It certainly leaves a lot to be desired, in all honesty. These are good games, but, it's only 3 of them. PSP over here, 13 games for PSP. And they are true PSP games. They're not PSP minis. Definitely some cool titles. NBA 2K11 is awesome. I think that's actually one of the... I don't want to say it's the first one, but it's one of those 2K games that I remember playing quite a lot back then. Prince of Persia, we got some Ridge Racer. It's pretty good stuff here. Keep it moving. Supervision. We've got 66 games in Supervision. And that is going to conclude everything we've walked through. Literally every single collection within here. Now let's jump into some gameplay demos. Just make sure that everything does actually function the way it's supposed to. And we'll jump out and talk about the experience. All right, guys, we just checked out this 500 gigabyte Batocero 35 plug-and-play game drive right here. And all in all, it was a pretty good experience. It does exactly what's advertised. It handles everything very well. Obviously, you need to connect it to a PC capable of emulating whatever it is you're trying to emulate. But for the most part, everything on here isn't all that demanding. GameCube's a little bit more demanding, and PS2, there's not a ton of games for, both of those collections though. So the majority of what is on here is going to be your retro stuff, as I call it, your stuff that is, up through N64. Now, one thing I will say that I'm not a big fan of with this is simply the fact that Dreamcast isn't on here. I was really looking forward to Dreamcast being on here because it's one of my favorite retro collections, in all honesty. I talk about that quite a bit here on my YouTube channel, how I think that Dreamcast was just ahead of its time, and I dive into that pretty regularly. So when I saw that Sega Naomi was on here, I figured, okay, we're going to get to a point where Dreamcast pops right up. but that wasn't the case. There's no Dreamcast games on this setup, so I think that's definitely a miss. Other than that, though, it's a pretty good selection of games. It's a lot of your older stuff, though, so if you're getting this, you want to have a lot of that older retro gaming capabilities on here. Now, PS2 is on here, but there's only 3 titles. Obviously, I'd like to have more than 3 titles, but the 3 titles that are on here are pretty good. They work very well. PSP is on here. That's a little bit more advanced as well. PSP runs very well. There's a lot of Nintendo DS on here. There's a lot of, your Game Boys on here. There's a lot of N64 on here. N64 I had a great experience with too. I jumped into Mario Kart 64. You can see it's a very good experience on here. I left everything as it comes, by default. So 4:3 aspect ratio. You can, of course, change that if you want to. You can mess around with your bezel settings as well. So lots of capabilities here. This is Batocera version 35, which at the time of this video is a little bit outdated. But again, you're getting some bang for your buck in terms of a plug-and-play setup where you don't have to go out and track down all your ROMs and your BIOS files and set everything up yourself. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there. And it's a little bit of a trade-off in what you get because you're dealing with, obviously, whatever somebody else was into, they put together on this setup. So for GameCube, I talked about this a little bit as well, how GameCube was not exactly lined up with what my personal taste is for GameCube. Still some great titles, but I think that there's better titles out there that could be included. But again, that's my personal taste. So when you go and you get yourself a plug-and-play setup like this, it's awesome because it's ready to go. You simply plug it into your PC and you can jump into your favorite titles just like that with ease. But you have to deal with, of course, the restraints of what is included on here. That doesn't mean you can't go in here and swap out titles. I can go in here, take out all the GameCube titles that I don't want, which is 90% of them, and I can put in whatever I can fit that I do want to play. So you can customize this, and you can add Dreamcast as well. I do want to speak to that because, I'm complaining that Dreamcast isn't on here, but you can add Dreamcast on here. You would just have to free up some space by removing some other stuff. So maybe you go in and you remove some of the PSP titles if you don't think you're going to play those. Or you go into N64 and you remove some of those and you put in Dreamcast in its place. PlayStation was absolutely stacked in here as well. Tons of PlayStation games. So if there's 100 games in there that you don't think you're going to dive into very much, you go in, you wipe out 100 games from PlayStation, you free up that space, and you add some Dreamcast in. So this can be used as a base for, just getting started with Batocera 2. You can even take this and put it onto a bigger capacity drive in the future if you want to. So definitely some amazing capabilities here, and it could be, a great way to build something even bigger and even better. So definitely think it does have some great offerings here. It just depends on what you're looking for, but in terms of it working and being truly plug and play, it is 100% reliable there. And there's not a ton of duplicates here. There's a lot of duplicates in that there's some multiple collections out there that have a lot of crossover. For example, Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, there's going to be natural crossover there with the same titles on each side. But other than Game Boy Color and Super Game Boy, there really wasn't a ton of duplicates in each individual collection, which is always good. I hate seeing tons of duplicates because that they put them in there simply to pad and inflate the numbers falsely, because you're not actually getting more bang for your buck. You're not actually getting more titles. You're just getting more of what you already had. So that's not the case here for the most part. So definitely, another strong thumbs up there. So I'm going to put some info up here at the top of your screen. I'll put a direct link to this product if you want to learn a little bit more about it, get some additional information. Go ahead and click that link up there. But let me know in the comments here what you guys thought of what this game drive has to offer from Batocera. Let me know. That's going to do it for today, though. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up on the video if you enjoyed the content today. And of course, hit subscribe to stay in the loop for all future videos. Thanks again. I'll see you on the next video.